covered this extensively in 2023 on the show, as the Let's Go initiatives were right into the final, going across the finish line in the final days. There were multiple instances of signature gatherers being harassed. In fact, I was there for one when I was just shopping at Costco one day. And this woman had come and crossed out an entire page of signatures at a Costco. The police were called, and it was just one of many instances that were happening where if you dared to try to collect signatures and allow voters to have an opportunity to share their opinion and to make their voice heard, well, you can't let them do that. So let's go there. Let's threaten them. Let's, cross out signatures. Let's destroy signatures. And one of the reasons this got so bad in 2023 is it was sanctioned by the Washington State Democratic Party. You'll recall this very well. They set up a snitch line, that they had a number that people could call to snitch on, there's a signature gatherer, a lawful signature gatherer. So let's send out our minions to harass them. They even said, note what the person who's collecting signatures is wearing. Take pictures of them if you can, and send it back to us so we can name them and shame them and send people out to harass them. So it was an effort to harass lawful signature gatherers and disrupt the democratic process that was sanctioned by the Washington State Democratic Party. Now, in 2023, you'll recall things got so bad that some Republican state lawmakers said we have to do something about this. More and more, it's just conservatives who are running initiatives because Democrats control all aspects of government. So they don't really have a reason to run an initiative because if they want to pass something, they'll just pass it. So it's really, people who feel like their voices are in the minority, who it's their last way to push back against the party in power is via the initiative process and to say, hey, let's make our voice heard this way. And so Republicans were like, we've had enough of Democrats trying to snuff out our last resort, the initiatives. So they put forth a very reasonable bill at the time that was like, we'll put a protective buffer zone around these signature gatherers, similar to what we do at ballot drop boxes, where you can, drop your ballot in without fear that you'll be harassed or intimidated. So it was the same idea. Hey, you're exercising your right to make your voice heard as a voter. So let's do the same thing. And it even got the support, I will say, of the one sane Democrat on this issue, Secretary of State Steve Hobbs. You'll recall I sent his office a letter. They sent me a response, invited me to Olympia to meet with him. I went and I testified on behalf of this bill to protect signature gatherers. Steve Hobbs sent someone from his office to testify in committee on behalf of this common sense bill to protect signature gatherers in the same way that we protect other aspects of the democratic process, because I thought Democrats were all about, protecting democracy, right? Well, no, you can't have that. They'll protect aspects of democracy that serve them, but we can't protect aspects of democracy that serve the other side. And so you had Democrats and progressives who showed up to testify against this bill, including, one of the most prominent progressive organizations in the state, the Northwest Progressive Institute, and they show up in front of this committee, and what do they argue? Oh, well, you can't have a buffer zone around these hateful, bigoted signature gatherers because we have a right to shout at them and tell them how horrible they are.
The bill refers to only people collecting signatures. There's another way to participate in the process, and that is to share with someone who is considering signing a petition what I believe to be the truth, what somebody believes to be true. I had an experience once where I heard someone saying incredibly vile things about gay people, and I interrupted and I corrected, and my 3-year-old daughter actually said, please stop saying that. You're hurting people I love.
Yeah.
That would be prohibited.
Which it wouldn't have been prohibited. You can still, there's nothing stopping, and there was nothing in that bill in 2023 that would have stopped someone who, let's say, disagreed with the Parental Bill of Rights initiative from setting up an opposing booth, 25 feet away, with some signs and encouraging people to say, hey, before you sign, come talk to us. Hear our opinion and hear their opinion. That wasn't enough, though. We can't do that. That's not going to stop people. We have to be able to be right in their face, yelling and screaming and calling them hateful bigots and transphobes, because that's how we do things in the Democratic Party. Can't disagree. We either got to put a bullet in your neck We've got to make you feel unsafe. We've got to label you and shame you. So you're so shamed, so ashamed of supporting something that you agree with that you just won't do it and you won't get involved. And so, of course, what did Democrats do? Well, they rejected that bill. They rejected a totally reasonable effort for all their claims about, oh, democracy is under attack from Donald Trump. Well, they simultaneously attacked democracy in this state in any way they could think of. And they rejected that bill and said, nah, we're not going to do that. So is it any surprise, and why am I so wound up about this today? Is it any surprise that 2 years later, while Let's Go Washington launches 2 new initiatives, that Democrats are doing the exact same thing? Well, of course it's not a surprise. They can get away with literally anything we allow them to get away with as a populace. They're the party in power. They have vast majorities. They can do anything they want to do. They can kill any bill they want to kill. No consequences for it. There was no electoral consequences for them in this state in 2023 when they wouldn't protect signature gatherers. So why not harass them now? Especially when the 2 new initiatives from Let's Go Washington are so contrary to their fundamental beliefs. What are the 2 new initiatives as a reminder? Protect girls' sports by keeping biological boys out of girls' sports. And then to try once again to reinstate the Parental Bill of Rights so parents know what's happening with their kids at school. For any common sense person, those are very reasonable initiatives, but not for the Democratic Party. And so now you're seeing these signature gatherers out in the community, trying to collect enough signatures by the end of the year. So, of course, what's happening? Same thing that happened in 2023. They're being harassed. They're being intimidated. They're being threatened in some instances. And in some instances, people are destroying the signatures of voters who decided to sign. So just yesterday, there were 3, potentially 4, we're looking into the 4th, instances that got so bad that police had to be called just yesterday. Just yesterday. And they run the gamut, but all of them serve the same purpose. All of them in some way disenfranchise voters and are an attack on democracy. For instance, in Vancouver, Washington, there was a manager of Fred Meyer who just took it upon themselves to say, I don't like these initiatives, so I'm going to set up a big line of carts around the table. I can't stop them from setting up the table because it's a public square. We've allowed other people to collect signatures and Girl Scouts to sell cookies. So under the law, you can't just pick and choose once you've become a public square. So we can't do that. So what do? Oh, well, let's set up carts around the whole table and make it more difficult for Washington voters to share their opinion. So that's the kind of stuff that we're getting multiple reports of. But then, of course, there are instances that are even worse than that and that are criminal. It is a gross misdemeanor if you try to destroy, steal, in any way, make it so that a signature that someone puts on an initiative will not count. And that's happening left and right with nary a consequence. For instance, this happened in Tacoma, and we're still getting to the bottom of some of this. We've been in touch with the Tacoma Police Department, but this is what the signature gatherer at this location, I believe it was a Walmart in Tacoma, said happened. She's collecting signatures. She says a black male walked up acting like he was going to sign. And instead, he scribbled out, and I had to blur it a little bit because I don't want to dox all the good common sense citizens who signed these initiatives. So he decided he was going to pretend, this guy pictured here, I'm going to pretend that I'm going to sign. Nope, I'm going to go up and I'm going to scribble out all the other people who were exercising their rights under the state constitution to have their voice heard. And then the signature gatherer also said that there was a woman who said that she would beat her ass if she wasn't sitting there in front of the Walmart. Because, of course, threats, right? Threats of violence. Typical stuff. There was another incident that happened. We're waiting for surveillance video of this incident. I don't have it yet. Hopefully I'll have it on tomorrow's show. Happened at a Bonnie Lake Walmart. A young male, like somewhere between 19 and 25 years old, this is the description of the signature gatherer, grabbed multiple sheets, fully completed sheets of signatures for these initiatives, ran into the bushes and ran away. This signature gatherer says here the Walmart employees were very kind, came out, tried to help gather up the things that had been strewn, made sure she was okay. The police were called. The police are working to gather a surveillance video to see if they can identify this individual who would be guilty of a gross misdemeanor. Now, why do you think that they resort to these things? Like I said, it's because they cannot win this debate on the merits. They can't. Banning biological boys from competing in girls' sports is an 80-20 issue. All the polls suggest that, if not higher, even in a state like Washington. There's no legitimate case to be made for it without lying and gaslighting and threatening and harassing and even assaulting or destroying. So that's what they're doing. The question is, will Democrats do anything about it? Of course not. Now, we plan to reach out to Secretary of State Steve Hobbs, who stood with us in 2023. And I gave him a ton of credit for that. I met with him personally. We had a great conversation about it. He sent someone, again, to testify on behalf of the bill to create a reasonable buffer zone to allow people to collect signatures without fear. So I think that Steve Hobbs will stand with us again this time around. But that doesn't mean that the rest of the Democrats in Olympia won't, because they're pushing these things. Again, they're the ones who put out a snitch line in 2023. And the media doesn't cover this stuff. The media is perfectly fine with really anything that Democrats do. I mean, can you imagine? Again, it's like a broken record. Can you imagine if the roles were reversed and there was some initiative about trans rights and Republicans were out there threatening, harassing, ripping up sheets, drawing on sheets, stealing sheets of valid signatures? Oh my God, it would be the front page of the Seattle Times. It would lead the headlines on all the news stations. It's just crazy to me. And I don't know what it'll take for people to start taking seriously the danger of one-party rule. One party that is only policing itself. They can do whatever they want to do. They cannot do whatever they want to do. They make up the rules because there is no dissent. It's so scary. And all of these leftists who scream about fascism and totalitarianism and their concern about Donald Trump and where the country is heading. And oh my God, he's silencing dissenting views and Jimmy Kimmel and all of these things. Meanwhile, it's been happening in their own backyard for years and years and years, and they don't flinch. Because they're perfectly fine being lorded over as long as they're being lorded over by someone who they agree with. They don't care if people are shut up, if people are punished for their views, as long as it's the people who they disagree with. It is such scary stuff, and that's why I don't take a lot of it seriously from the left when they're complaining about all these, free speech and attacks on democracy and political violence and January 6th. Because all of that, they do tenfold and don't complain about it at all. And I gotta say, I was gonna reach out to some of the high school athletes who we've had on the show, the young female athletes who've been so brave and who've spoken up. 15, 16 years old, who've come out and spoken up and stood up for themselves and said, we shouldn't have to play against biological boys, who've put themselves out there, who've been harassed as children online by nutcases. I was gonna reach out and say, hey, do you guys want to do a signature gathering event for these two Let's Go Washington initiatives, especially the one that protects girls' sports? And I'm sure they would love to, but I don't know if in good conscience I can do that. Because I don't know that we can protect them. I wouldn't put it past adults on the left to go out and scream and harass or even assault teenage girls. Would any of you? Would any of you be willing to send out your teenage daughter to collect signatures for one of these initiatives, knowing how unhinged and dangerous the other side is when confronted with any sort of dissent for radical gender ideology? I was protested collecting signatures and called a transphobe by a big group outside a coffee shop. And you know what? We did it anyway, but I'm an adult. I had security. And I know these young girls, and we'll still talk to them, but I know they so badly want to bring about change, and this initiative finally gives them an opportunity to do that. But there's bringing about change, and there's putting your life on the line to bring out change. And yes, I think it's that bad. I think every single one of these signature gatherers, be they paid or volunteers, literally are putting their life on the line and risk being killed by collecting signatures to protect girls' sports and to protect parental rights. How sad and sick is that? If I did a signature gathering event for this today, I would hire security for it. I would hire armed security to be out collecting signatures for two common sense initiatives that I think most Washingtonians would support. That's insane. So I don't want to hear jack shit from the left about the political violence and the temperature in this country. Well, I can't even go out collecting signatures or send teenage girls who want to be part of the democratic process out into their own communities collecting signatures for something that they care so deeply about. How disgusting is that? And Democrats won't do jack. They won't do jack to protect this aspect of the democratic process while they scream and shriek to high heaven that Donald Trump is a threat to our democracy. Good God. Good grief. It's insane. What do I even say? We ranted about this for months in 2023. We talked about this for months. We did so much with elected leaders. We did all we could behind the scenes to say, hey, let's protect democracy. You care about democracy, right? Let's do it. Yeah, we'll protect democracy for our voters, not for your voters. Wild. Disgusting.